Hello to the single viewer. So I've switched targets now. So earlier on in the evening, I was imaging NGC 7822. Ooh, got some microphones on. I've now switched to the Rosette Nebula, which is visible, and I'm capturing 10-minute subs in HA with my QHY268M connected to my Spree 100, and I'm live stacking those in PixInsight over here. So I had 10 images from a previous night, and it's now picked up the new image, the single image I've imaged tonight, stacked it together. That's a lot of data there. This is just a HA channel, so it's what I call a very giving target. It almost looks too bright. It might be, I don't know, might be overexposed potentially. I don't think I've blown anything out though, to be honest. So I'm really looking forward to what this is going to turn out like. We're looking clear, but I can't stay up all night, and I'm only going to probably stream for an hour. See how we get on. My guiding's not the best. I mean, if it doesn't, I mean, it's below 1. I don't know why Nina does this. It shows 1.02, yet right now it's 0.96. So I think someone asked me before, why do I keep flicking to PhD2 when I've got the graph here? Well, it's like, well, the figures don't actually match exactly. They're not a million miles apart, but they're not correct. And I'm going to trust what PhD2 is telling me. So this is the first sub for tonight on the Rosette. I haven't checked the corners, which is something I normally do, but I normally do it in PixInsight, but I can't do that whilst it's doing the live stack. So I'm just going to go down, turn off the HFR. I'm going to go down into the corners. They're not perfect. They're not bad, but they're not perfect. I'm not entirely sure why, but again, they're passable. My backspacing hasn't changed. Put the HFR back on. So this is the live stack. So where this is working is everything's outside. I don't use a laptop anymore. I use a mini PC. I've done for about, well, over a year now. So I have my mini PC connected on top of the mount. That's connected to my home Wi-Fi. And then every time a file is created on this machine, which I'm remote desktop to, I'll show you the folder structure that I use. Nina images. This is tonight. There's the first sub that came in. Every time a file is created here, it's automatically copied to a machine inside my home, which is this one here. And this is what's effectively monitoring the folder where the files get copied to, and then in real time, once that file arrives, it just stacks it. Obviously, this isn't a stack that you would keep. It's more just to see, because there's things like Windsor Sigmarized clipping, you can't do that. So if I've got a big satellite trail through that, it's not going to remove it. I can do a little bit of noise reduction, but it's mainly to see what your data's looking like. And it won't be a million miles away from this when it's fully stacked, but it is literally a way to see the data in real time. And I mean, going back to the image in Nina, it looks great for a single 10-minute sub. It's really clear tonight as well in the UK. It looks like we've got 2 clear nights on the row, which is unheard of. So to get an early imaging session in January is always a bonus. When I look back, I actually imaged this target on the 26th of January as well in 2021. It was the last image I took on my Esprit with my ASI 071 MC before I upgraded it to a 2600 MC. So I've never imaged it in monochrome before. I've only ever imaged, well, 2 targets now. This is the 3rd. So I'm really looking forward to this, what it's going to come out like. I'm using the Antlia 3nm filters, and this is the first pass in HA. I've only got, in this current sequence, 12, and that's because I've already got 12 already, so I'll have 24 in total. And then if I get time, I just wanted to grab some O3 and S2, but I'll probably finish those off tomorrow night if the weather does stay as predicted, which is to be clear. Paul, hello Paul. Yeah, the spec of the mini PC. Apologies. So I was going to do a video, and then Quiv the Lazy Geek came out with his video. So I put it to the bottom of the list. And then my very good friend Luca Matico, I was chatting to him tonight, and he's doing a video about a mini PC as well. So I was like, okay, I'll leave mine for a bit longer. I can talk about that now actually, because I use an Intel NUC. Now, Intel NUCs have always been the expensive version of mini PCs. You can get many cheaper PCs. However, there was a model that they released. It was a Intel Gen 8 one, and I'll get the details. They don't make it anymore, but you can still buy it second hand, and it's what is called a bare bones kit. So you have to put in an NVMe flash SSD type drive and some memory. But when you buy the bare bones kit and the NVMe and the memory, it still comes out at about 280 quid. And the other key part is you need to make sure that it's 12 volts. So what Intel did was Gen 8 CPUs were 12 volts, so the NUCs would do 12 to 19 volts, so they run happily on 12 all day long. When Gen 10s came out with the Intel Gen 10 processors, they suddenly went to 19 volts only, which immediately ruled out it being used on an Astro platform, really. You don't want to have to put that power brick and mount that up. So then when they went to Gen 11, they've gone back to 12 to 19 volts. So let me dig out the spec of what I have. Now, First Light Optics have just started selling the same model that Quiv the Lazy Geeks reviewed, and you're not going to be actually running PixInsight or Photoshop or anything on these devices. You can get away with a really minimalistic PC which will do guiding, image acquisition, your mount control, without actually going totally overboard on spec. The only thing I would say is, unless you've got somewhere to store your images, maybe get a larger flash drive for it. And you'll notice as well, if you go down the Intel NUC route, there is two types. I say two types, two form factors. There's a small form factor and a taller form factor. Obviously, you don't need the taller form factor. That's if you wanted to put a mechanical hard drive in. So you can get away with the small form factor ones. That's the one that I've got 2 of. So I've got one on my Edge HD rig, and I've got one on my imaging rig that I'm using tonight, my Esprit 100. They're both identical in terms of the model that I bought. The first one I bought new because it was still available. And then the second one, because I just wanted the same model because I knew it worked, I literally found one on Facebook ads, and I paid 190 quid for it. As I say, there are others available, such as Minx, B-Link, and the one on First Light Optics looks really nice because it's really thin as well and weighs next to nothing. I'll see if I can find it. Yeah, it's a B-Link one. And I think they bundle this with, yeah, it's got 8 gig of memory and a 256 gig SATA card, M2 SATA card. There is an upgraded version of this, I think, with more memory and a larger M2 card. Absolutely great. The only reason I bought an Intel one is I tend to buy branded things. I know they all sort of come out of Chinese factories, but they're absolutely fine. It's revolutionised how I image, because I used to have the traditional laptop in a plastic case, try and keep condensation off it, and it's just one more thing to have a cable running away from your mount, to one more thing to pack up. So yeah, I wouldn't swap it over for the world. And it's a similar concept to the ASI Air, something you'd mount on your rig. Greetings to Maz if lol. Where am I based? I'm based in York, which is in the north of the UK. Very famous for being foggy, which isn't great for astrophotography, but it's normally on a morning when we get fog. Just been sent a pic of a friend of a Stellarmate mini PC bought. Looks like an ASI Pro. I've never heard of them. Have you? Yes, I have. So the Stellarmate is, I won't say it's a con. I actually bought the Stellarmate software without buying the hardware, because all the Stellarmate software is a, let me rewind. There's a distribution for Linux on Raspberry Pis called Astroberry. You can download Astroberry for free. It's open source, and you can flash that image onto a Raspberry Pi 3 or a Raspberry Pi 4. And the Raspberry Pi 3 is about 90 quid all in. Raspberry Pi 4 might be a little bit more. The price, they're not expensive. And Astroberry has everything built into it. ECOS, PhD2. It's ready to go. It's not as user friendly as Windows. What Stellarmate is basically a bastardized Astroberry installation, and what they've done is they've created an iPad and an Android app that sits at the front end. So very much like the ASI Air. So the advantage is you can control everything from a tablet or a phone without having to use the Astroberry Stellarmate built-in software, which you can still do through something called VNC, where you can remote control the console of the Raspberry Pi. So yeah, that's what Stellarmate is, but they charge you for the software 50 quid. And as I say, the only thing you're getting over an Astroberry installation is the ability to run it off a tablet or connect to it from a tablet and press buttons and have a simplified interface. You've just received an ASI Plus, but I was thinking of getting a mini PC for a second mount. Yeah, I used to have an ASI Air V1, the original one, before the Pro and before the Plus. Didn't really use it that much. And then I changed a few of my bits, so I went away from a ZWO focuser to a Sister Senso Primalucha Lab focuser, and it doesn't support, as you probably know, any focusers other than their own. And the camera that I'm using right now is a QHY 268M, and again, they only support a range of DSLRs and their own ZWO cameras. So I know a good friend of mine, he might be watching, Luke. He's a massive ASI Air fan. He's got his own channel, Luke Matico. Go check him out. And he's done some great stuff with the ASI Airs. And I know Quiv's been raving about them, and also making some suggestions for future enhancements. You're in Glasgow and it's clouded over. I thought the all of the UK, I thought it was all clear tonight. Let me have a quick look at a weather radar. It is showing a few clouds up there. Yeah, the top end. It's normally Scotland that's quite clear, and the north of England quite cloudy. So I'm happy for it to be the other way around for the moment. It's not often we get clear nights these days. It feels like it's been an eternity. You can't get the stellar mate on a PI to work. To be honest, I struggled as well. It didn't like my CGX mount at all, and I had to fiddle around inside. The way that you activate it is a little bit archaic, to say the least, as well. I did eventually get it going, but it wasn't for me. So we've got about 100 seconds for. Have I waffled on? I've actually missed a sub. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, we've actually got 12 now in the stack. So we started off with 10 tonight. So we've got 2 going on there. So data's coming in really well. Obviously, O3 and S2 will be slightly disappointing compared to what the HA is showing us, but I'll probably have stopped the live stream by then, to be honest. Still keeping an eye on this guiding. It's down at 0.86, but Nina thinks it's at 0.93. Must be a bug. Hello, Beatrice. Happy New Year to you as well from Belgium. Same in Birmingham. Clouds going over. Was supposed to be clear. It's strange. Clouds can appear and can disappear as quickly as they appeared in the first place. Like probably a lot of people, I don't have a permanent setup, so I have to take that risk of setting up, and you're not on your own when it takes me about 30 minutes to set up, and that's because I've got to carry things out in 3 bits. I've got to take the tripod out, I've got to take my mount out, and then I've got to take my scope out with everything loaded on it. It takes me about 30 minutes balancing, do a bit of polar alignment, and for it to then cloud over can be incredibly disheartening. I completely get that, but sometimes you have to just ride it out, and I've probably the longest I've ever set up and gone, oh, it's clouded. I've given it 3 hours. Sometimes it's come clear, sometimes it hasn't. Maz, if lol, you've just imaged the Rosette for the first time on the first. Such a rewarding orbit. Yeah, there are some great targets in the winter sky. Obviously, Orion, the Horsehead are very popular targets now, and I've only ever done a wide field shot of Orion. So I once described it as a tin of spilt paint. I don't know why it's not my favourite target, but it's probably because I've never taken a decent picture of it, to be honest. And it's obviously, with it being so bright, you don't have to spend a huge amount of time to get data out of it. So I'm definitely going to be imaging Orion before the night, not tonight, but before before it disappears again for another year. There are so many great targets in the sky at the moment, and of course we'll be fast approaching galaxy season, which will be challenging. So I've got an Esprit 100 ED, which is a 550mm refractor. So there are some galaxies which are absolutely great for it. There are some which are just far too small and far away. But I have got my Edge HD, which is 2000mm in focal length. It's a bit of a beast to tame. I haven't got the right guide scope on it, and I haven't got an off-axis guider for it at the moment. So, but I will be pulling it out. Just bear with me. My cat is meowing to go out. The cat is out. Yeah, M78 is a great target. Most things around Orion. I have a fascination with the Horsehead. I'm hoping to get a really close up of the Horsehead using my Edge HD this year. Um, clouds. So, whereabouts are you from, Beatrice? Is it Beatrice? I presume it's Beatrice. Apologies. Oh God, look at this guiding. What's happening? If the stars are still round, if there's anything that you learn as a astrophotographer, is Don't become obsessed with these numbers. It's easy to do so, but if your stars are still round in the corners and in the middle, don't go chasing those numbers. I've seen this go as wild as up to 1.2 and then just drop back down to 0.6. I do occasionally check for cable snags, but I've got pretty much everything in a way that it'd be very difficult to snag cables. It's dropping down now, so you're from Belgium. Let's have a look at the weather in Belgium. Oh yes, looks like there's a big rain and snow and lots of clouds over most of France, Holland, Germany. Oh god, yeah. It's unusual because it's normally the other way around. It's the UK that seems to get a lot of the cloudy weather. Apologies, I've got a little bit of a cough at the moment, so let's have a look how this stack's doing. So we've got 13 images now in this live stack. So this is just a live stack of the HA filter. I'm going to have to use my calculator because my mind's gone dead. 13. It's got 7,800 seconds of integration time at the moment. So 2 hours, 10 minutes. We're quite excited in the UK, Beatrice. We've got another night of clear skies according to the forecast tomorrow. Um, it's pretty unheard of to get 2 clear nights where it's absolutely, we do get clear nights, but it's usually clouds, then maybe a clear patch for a couple of hours, then clouds again, and you've really got to be hardcore to sort of sit out those clouds. Then we get the horrible sort of high wispy clouds that just interfere with your images. You can image, but you know you're not getting the best. As far as I can see right now, where I am in York, it is absolutely cloud free. I've not really had a good look at the scene, but it looks nice. It does look nice, and I'll take anything. Last year, I set myself in January a target of if I could get 12 images, one a month for the year, I'd be happy. And I managed to get, I think, 15. Obviously, got work commitments, but it has been helpful working from home because I don't have to get up as early to drive to work. So where I work is about an hour and 15 minutes drive away. And it also means I can set up earlier as well. So it does make it a little bit easier working from home with the current situation we're in. So I've set myself the same target again this year. If I can get 12 images this year. But what I'm going to try and do is try and get some, whilst this isn't a uncommon image, I'm going to try and get some uncommon targets built in there as well. So some targets that people generally, I won't say skip, but that you don't often see them. I think you know what I mean. You often see, especially on the Facebook groups, a lot of the same images because they're not easy to image. They're just very, very giving. But I think there's a lot of things out there that I certainly want to have a go at, and just to give a bit of variety, really. Well, yes, thank you, Beatrice. It is looking very nice. This is literally just a raw stack. It will actually, because this is the first time tonight I've used this easy live stack feature. I can see that it's not stacking it perfectly, but as I said earlier, it's a great way of just seeing what the data's potentially going to look like. And I'm sure when I stack it and then combine it with my other channels, this is going to be. I'm gonna tempt fate here and say probably my best image ever. I think. I hope. I'll certainly spend a lot of time on processing it. just realised I'm not taking my head torch off. Let's go back in here. Guiding settling down, so I'm okay with that. I'm not going to chase it either. The only time I would start to worry is if this started to creep up past 1.5. If it started to go up there, then I know there's something wrong, and that's just based on all my previous sessions for the last 12 to 18 months. I've generally been under 1, and when it's gone above 1.5, there's been some issue. So one of the times a bird, I don't know what it was doing because most birds are asleep, but a bird landed on my mount and sat on the dovetail bar. The only reason I knew that is I saw the numbers going up, and I could see some weird shadows on the guide cam. I couldn't work out what they were, so I literally went out to the back door and just saw this bird fly off. So and the guiding had gone up to like 1.8, which would have probably still been okay, but I didn't want a bird pooing on my mount, to be honest. Is probably the reason. Yeah, thanks for joining, Paul. This is just a test stream. I'm not a big live streamer. I just thought I'd go live and see how we go. But yeah, thanks for coming. Appreciate you taking the time to watch. It's not the most exciting thing to watch, is it? I know people like Chuck, when he's doing his solar and his moon things, there's a little bit more interaction where you can start almost taking requests to say, what do you want to have a look at? Keep hitting the mic. So if anybody's got any questions, I can't guarantee I'll be able to answer them. I'll try. Just going to check a couple of things. Yeah, Maz, that's it. Yes, exactly what I thought I'd give a go tonight. Because what I normally do, so last year, what I would do is I would wait till the several images had come in on my mini PC outside, then I'd copy them over to my. Keep stopping hitting this. I'd copy them over to my main PC, and then stack them with weighted batch pre-processing. Have a quick look and go, well, that looks nice. And then when a few more images would come in, I'd repeat the process, but obviously you've got to restack them all. So yeah, I just when I saw the feature, I thought, well, I'll give that a go. It's fairly straightforward to set something up to copy the files from your imaging PC to another PC. So yeah, no, it's probably something I'll do quite a lot, to be honest. It's fairly straightforward, and we've actually got 14 images now in the stack. I suppose it's going to be one of these things. It's going to be very difficult to spot the changes because the more and more data's coming in, it's almost like we need to take a snapshot of it now and then have a look at what it looks like in, say, another 30 minutes. What are the little annotations? So these, because I use Nina, and let me chat about Nina for a split second. I used to use APT, loved APT, created some of my, it allowed me to basically start in a semi-automated astrophotography. Then I used SGP for a bit, mainly because of its autofocus that at the time APT didn't have, and then I went to Nina, and there's no going back for me now. I'll be Nina through and through. What these little yellow things are is the HFR of the star size. So I've got it toggled on to measure the HFR details. So if I was to zoom in, you'll see, hopefully now, this is the HFR measured size of these stars. I don't know why. I just like it on in this view. It also shows it down here in the image history. It gives the sort of an average HFR for the image overall. I've turned it off now. Yeah, Astrophoto Andy, thanks for joining. I did see that it did have ABE, and there was a couple of other options as well. There was some, we can't change them I don't think now. It won't even let me show them. Unless, in fact, if I just do a stop, because there's no image coming in. I think over here you had run a noise evaluation. I've got it set to ABE with a function degree of 2. I don't know if I need to up that. If you're doing color imaging, you can SCNR green as well. So yeah, and if you create some master flats and darks, you can apply those as well. So yeah, it's a nice little tool. The thing I haven't worked out yet, and because I haven't got enough data since I've started messing around with it, is when I capture some O3 and S2, I've seen the option that I can basically combine them into a RGB image and do an RGB stack as well. As with most people, I suspect this will be very red, and I tend to lean towards more of a Hubble-ish 4X palette. I'm experimenting with some of those. So let's go back into here. 246. So we've got 4 exposures. We're on the 5th. HFR is doing okay. Occasionally, I keep an eye on this sensor humidity. So the QHY has this unique feature that I've not seen on ZWO cameras, of where it can show you the sensor humidity within inside the chamber that hosts the CMOS sensor itself. I don't think QHYs have had fogging issues. I've certainly had a couple of fogging issues on my 071MC when I had it. I think I was cooling it down too quickly. I think I only had it a couple of times in the year that I had it, but I wasn't actually looking for that though. I was looking for the cooler power. So look at that. It's only using 15%. And we're at -10. Now, yeah, admittedly, we did start at about 1 degree because it's quite cold. It's currently, look, 2 degrees, but it's got a wind chill factor of, I think, -3 because it is a little bit breezy as well. That may explain why my guiding's a little bit higher than I'd like it, but not chasing those numbers. So yes, I just make, I don't know why, for a habit, I randomly, every hour, just check that the cooler power and the chip temperature are as they should be. We're probably going to be hitting an autofocus run soon, I think. I'm using a colour combination in Nina's Pix Insight Live. So yeah, I saw that, Astro Nick. So I have version 2 beta. I think the last beta I downloaded was beta 23. I work in the IT industry, so I have a test Nina instance that I don't use for live imaging, but I use it to have a look at the new features and have it hooked up on another rig. And I've been waiting with bated breath for version 2 to come out, which I don't know how many more betas are going to come. And I did see that there's some great plugins coming along. I did see one just literally the other day when I was having a quick look at what the new features were. There is one about copying files from Nina from the folder where you're storing your files to a remote location. Basically what I'm doing here, but I'm using a different tool to do it. I quite like the 3D view of the scope as well, because I don't know why. I sort of know what position it's at right now, but just all those sorts of things. It's just a great piece of software, and the fact that it's been continually developed, and then the big bonus is it's free and open source. It's absolutely fantastic. I won't say APT and SGP should be worried, because they've got some diehard fans, and I'd hate for them to see them disappear. But whilst Nina's ongoing and developing as it is, it's fast becoming the favourite with a lot of people. I did find its interface a little bit odd to start with. It's a bit like if you've ever used SGP. SGP is a little bit odd with how you use the floating windows and the docks, and Nina's the same. And even though I'd used SGP, I just found Nina a little bit odd at first, and then as soon as you've grasped a few concepts, it's like, okay, yeah, I get what you're doing. So I didn't understand why all my tabs appeared down here. I was like, I don't want them down here, I want them around here. And I realised you can just pick them up and move them around. Just little things like that. Once you realise what it's doing, I think it's absolutely fantastic. So you had that with the 071 as well, not cooling down, or when not cooling down slowly. Yeah, you generally know what's happened, because on that first image you see some. It's hard to describe what frost pattern looks like, but it's a very, very regular, symmetrical pattern that appears. Not usually across the entire frame either. It's normally in like corners or down one side. I suppose the good thing is when I had it a couple of times, it's usually gone by about 10-15 minutes. Well, it's amazing. The SI have removed many barriers for me, but I could never leave Nina now. Yeah, I completely get that. If I'd have been ZWO, which up until a point last year I was, I'd have probably stuck with the ASI Air and gone down the plus route. I just like the flexibility though of I've got ZWO equipment, I've got a ZWO guide scope, I'm using a ZWO mini guide cam right now. I've got a 2600 MC Pro color camera, which I'm still using on my Edge HD. But I've got a Primalucha Labs Sesta Senso 2 focuser. I've got this new QHY monocam and filter wheel, and I just need that flexibility. And I don't think they're ever going to open up the ASI Air for other cameras. It's a shame, because I don't think it would actually harm their market, to be honest. I did actually try and hack the Air. I probably shouldn't say that live on video. I've got an autofocus run kicking in. Let's see if we get a nice V curve. So because I know a little bit about Linux, I sort of grew up in my IT world. I was a Unix programmer for 12 years, quite a long time ago, as Linux was being developed. And the ASI Air is basically a flavour of Linux called Raspbian that they've turned into their own distribution and locked it down. But it was quite easy to get into the Air as a root account user. And I had a quick look at what they were doing, and they're still using Indy, which is the Linux and flavour of, if you like, ASCOM. Indy is the open source standards for astronomy on a Linux environment. But for the focuser and for the cameras, they're not using Indy. They're using their own compiled applications. Because I thought I could make it use my Sesta Senso, and I tried everything to try and make it inside. I put the driver for it from Indy onto it, and I started it up in the startup sequences, but they must have something in there that's detecting whether or not it's their own driver that's been used or not. SGP's blown out the water. I was using it for many years, but they are keeping it with Nino. Yeah, and I was a little bit disheartened when they went to this subscription model with SGP. Not a fan of that either, albeit I currently have an active subscription with them, but you've just reminded me I need to check if it auto renews, because I probably won't auto renew it now. I can't see anything in SGP that I need. And of course, you can still use version 3 without the subscription. So, and to be honest, I've not seen anything in version 4 that's new over and above version 3. So I don't know. Yeah, I did presume what you said, but they are not keeping it with Nina, because you said, but they are keeping it with Nina. I was like, I think you probably you did mean not keeping it with them. Mazif, I'm running a William Optics Zenith Star 81, and if my focal length is still too much with my reducer for a target, can I get more reduction with a different adapter? If that's the only reducer that is available, and I would generally, other than Starizona, who do reducers for quotes different optics, I would generally keep with the reducer that you've got provided by the vendor. So if it's a Skywatch reducer, if it's a William Optics one, if they don't do, I'm not familiar with William Optics scopes and reducers that much. However, I was looking at one last night. I would say that if the most they offer is a 0.8, then you're going to be stuck unless you can find something like Starizona. But you're probably not going to see anything less than 0.6, and you could probably check the field of view with something like Stellarium to see if with a 0.6 reducer, if it would still fit in. Yeah, I completely get the benefits of the air. It's makes things mobile potentially quite easy. I just wish they wouldn't. I don't know. Well, they obviously think that it's going to hurt their camera sales and their focuser sales. So what will be interesting is when they bring out their harmonic mount, the AM5 in April. Are they going to remove all the mounts out of the ASI Air? I doubt it, because that would cause a huge backlash. However, they're going to then run a model where they're going to have the ASI Air that supports ZWO mounts and other mounts, but isn't going to support the other cameras and other focusers. It'd be a crazy move if they took out support for other mounts. I think they would lose a lot of customers, because they would have to assume that everybody's got an AM5 mount, and they're not going to have. Maybe when the AM5 comes out, they go the opposite way and go, look, we're opening it up to focusers now, but it's provided by Indy, not by us. So if it doesn't work, you're on your own. I'd take that all day long. I even suggested, I think, on a forum once, that why don't they do like an ASI, I think the Pro was out at the time, like a premium Pro that was a 30-40 quid more, but unlocked third-party mounts, third-party focusers and cameras. But I don't know if they're interested or not. Yeah, potentially. Cameras have a lot more energy, and I suspect they are making quite a lot of points on them from the manufacturing. We've seen, what's the brand that Quiv's just reviewed recently? The blue one. I can't remember what it's called. Rising Cam. I mean, if that's not an ASI ZWO camera in blue with almost the same connectors on the back, it's obviously got a lot of their cameras are modelled on the same sensor, but their price is a hell of a lot cheaper than the ZWO price. So yeah, I suspect there is quite a big markup on them. So the reason we're seeing a crappy picture here is because this was the last autofocus run. So I'll put it back to what we're on now. We're on 15 HA images stacked, and we've done half of HA. Yeah, Sharpstar. They're bringing out the harmonic mount version 3. So I didn't even. I'm presuming they've done 2 other versions. I've not looked, but yeah, it's crazy times because I don't know if you're aware as well, Mazif. They are. There's another company called Pegasus Astro, which I'm a big fan of. I use their pocket power boxes. I've got 2, one on the rig I'm on now and one on my Edge HD rig as well. Powers my Nook, my camera, my mount. I feed it a decent 10 amp 12 volt supply, and it works tremendously. Well, Pegasus Astro are also bringing out a harmonically driven mount as well. So what happened was ZWO announced it on Christmas Eve, and then Pegasus, I think, were forced to reveal that they were doing something, because they openly said on Facebook, and we weren't ready to sort of reveal this yet, but here it is. We're also doing a harmonic mount in a nice anodized blue to match their other products. So I think Rainbow Astro and Hobbium might be, I won't say they're slightly worried. They're certainly quite a lot more expensive, but we need to see what ZWO, Sharpstar, and Pegasus Astro, what they actually deliver. I know that guiding is almost becomes the most important thing for these harmonic mounts. You have to have really low exposure guiding, because they have terrible periodic error, but they have no backlash and require, I won't say no balancing, but they're less susceptible to being unbalanced. Apologies, can't shake this cough off. Yeah, this is the. Let's have a quick look. They've only announced it on their Facebook page. They haven't actually got it on. Oh, there's an article on Astro Gear today. It hasn't got a name. There's no clue on here. This is their harmonic mount. I don't think there's any. There's some bit of details there. The one thing I saw which caught my eye was this electronic assistant on polar alignment. Now, that's not saying to me it's an electronically polar aligned mount, because you've got these azimuth and alt adjustments here. What I think it is, I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to have their own software, a bit like SharpCap, that it will use your guide scope or your main camera to do polar alignment. I don't mind paying $10 a month for SharpCap, because I do all my polar alignment now with SharpCap. I ditched my PoleMaster probably 6 months ago. It's sat in a box. Should probably sell it. It's great at the time, Sharp cap $10, and I think it's more accurate than that. But it'd be interesting to see if that's what Pegasus Astro are going to do. That's my guess, is that they will have some software bundled with the mount that will be like Sharp cap's polar alignment. There's no evidence that it's got a camera built in like some of the iOptron iPolar mounts. But yeah, interesting times. It'd be interesting to see if Rainbow Astro and Hobbium reduce their prices. Yeah, that power cable routing through the mount looks to be good. It's difficult to see how that's going to work from the picture and the description, but it's one of those things. Pegasus Astro are not as well known as ZWO. They're a Greek company, absolutely great. When I've emailed them for questions and support and things, not that I've had to email them a lot about support, but they're really responsive. They've got this device coming out, and the geek in me wants to buy this, and I will get it when it comes out. It got delayed. It's this thing called the Uranus Meteor sensor. It's basically a well, it's this. I don't need the relative humidity and temperature or the dew point, but it's got a cloud detector and a sky brightness detector and a GPS as well. So there's a cloud sensor, a sky brightness sensor, and if you've already got a Pegasus Astro Pocket power box, you can just connect it straight to it. So I'm going to mount this on top, because what I'm interested in is when I'm taking my images, it'd be really useful if this will be able to expose that data to be written into a FITS header, so that I can see what the sky brightness was and whether or not there were clouds, because obviously when you get high clouds you can't sometimes see them with your eye, and they may just appear on your images as your image is slightly dimmer than the last one. And for me to have that data recorded with my images, I think will help me work out what are good nights and what are bad nights. So I'm really looking forward to when this comes out. You can see this is their interface. It's all going to be ASCOM. So I'm interested in the cloud sensor and the sky quality. It was meant to come out last year, but due to the worldwide electronics shortage, they're now saying Q1 2022, which is now, but it's not available yet, because I checked today. So back onto the image, we're just starting to dither. For those of you, dithering is where the camera shifts a few pixels in a random direction. The idea is that we're not just constantly taking the same pixels, same photons landing on the same pixels picture after picture, and that helps with reducing some noise. It's also used for drizzling, should you want to drizzle. Yeah, it is. And they've made it clear it's not designed for observatories. It's not designed for you to stick on a pole outside your observatory. It's designed for portable use on the night, and you pack it away when you're finished. So I'll just be mounting it on top of my mount. If you want something for permanent observatories, there are other things available by, I think they're called Cloudomatic, something like that. They do permanent weather stations that can do all that funky business as well. A lot more expensive, but they're more geared at a permanent setup. So for any newcomers, we're taking 12 exposures on the HA filter. My filters are the Antlia 3nm narrowband filters. I couldn't quite push myself to spend huge amounts of money on Chroma or Astrodon, and I've been using a Optolong L Extreme Pro on my 2600 color camera, and I was looking at the Optolong narrowband ones, but the Antlias were getting rave reviews on various forums, so I've been very impressed with them so far. I've not done a great deal of halo star testing on the O3 channel. At one point, I am literally just going to point it at Alnitak on O3 and see what comes back with like a 5-minute exposure. It'll either have halos or it won't. I suspect there might be some. Yeah, iTech Astro do a couple of those weather devices. I've seen those as well. Astronic, yeah. I nearly pulled the trigger on one of them, and then I thought I'll just wait for the Pegasus Astro one. It fits in with the sort of ecosystem that I've got. So what's our stack? We're up at 16. Yeah, we're up at 16 now. As I say, it's difficult to see the changes now. I suspect this as well is probably more stretched. I don't think you can adjust the stretch that it's doing. I've certainly not seen anything. No. Unless somebody knows how to change that on the thing. I'd like to see this slightly less stretched. I think it's a bit aggressive. Oh, Astrophotography, Andy, have you got the Antlia 3.5 or the new 3 NM ones? Because I know there was a few people annoyed when they brought out the 3 NM ones, and then some people just bought the 3.5 NM ones. So I'd be interested to know if you're not seeing halos on bright stars on either of them, to be honest. So, Mazif, what would you say, in your opinion, is the single greatest, most useful product hardware for aspiring astrophotographers? I don't want to sound blasé, but it has to be the mount. If you don't, well, let me rephrase that. Let me show you the first ever astrophotography picture I ever took. Probably won't be able to find it. I'll tell you how I'll find it. It's on my Facebook page. And then I'll answer your question, and it might make sense. You're going to see all my personal stuff here now. How do you see your own pictures on here? I don't know how to use Facebook. There we go. That was my first ever astrophotography picture I took. This was in. So that was reposted on 2020. So it was in 2017 in December. I'd literally just bought a Canon 750 DSLR, stock lens, tripod, a very flimsy tripod at that. I went out, didn't really know what I was doing. This is the southern sky in my back garden, and I took that picture. And I'd always had a fascination with the night sky, but never from a photography point of view. When I took the picture, I was hooked. I was like, this is unbelievable. I couldn't believe all these stars that I could see in the picture that I couldn't see with my own eyes. And I didn't have a mount to do this, but obviously it's literally a picture of a constellation. It's a reasonably composed picture, if I do say so myself. If you want to go past that, the most important thing is your mount, in my opinion, and in a lot of others' opinion, and I would agree with them. And the reason being is you can have a low quality lens and camera and still take a good picture with a mount, but you can't have a high quality camera. So I could have the world's best lens, the world's best camera, but if I haven't got something that will track the night sky very well, I may as well just throw them away. It literally is the mount. You must put your money into your mount first, and you don't have to buy the best to start with. I started with a Star Adventurer. Drove me crazy. That thing drove me crazy because I had no idea what I was doing. I wasn't a big forum user, and I didn't particularly like asking questions on Facebook because I felt, I don't know, intimidated by the responses if I didn't understand them. And that Star Adventurer drove me crazy for a 250 quid mount. But eventually, just through perseverance, the thing that drove me crazy was the polar alignment. I couldn't polar align it to save my life, and then I discovered PoleMaster and adapted it to it and cheated. I've never manually polar aligned anything successfully. Always done it electronically. So you can start with something like a Star Adventurer, or Ioptron do the sort of, I forget the name, but a very similar portable mount. And you can lug something on there up to a certain weight and get really impressive pictures of the night sky. I would say after the mount, I think someone's just mentioned the Astro Nick. Yeah. So the other thing that I struggled with my Star Adventurer, because it's not motorized, is finding things in the night sky. So learning the night sky, and that will certainly help. And you can do things called star hopping, where you recognize constellations, and so you can work out roughly where something is. Plate solving isn't really going to help you, other than show you what you've potentially taken a picture of in something like Stellarium if you hook that up. I have done that in the past, a long time ago, and I didn't really know what I was doing. But then you sort of go on to go-to mounts, which, again, a lot of my friends who are not into astro just think that, he said, well, do you just turn it on and say go to there? And it's like, well, you sort of do, but it doesn't always go to the right place. Well, why not? Well, because it doesn't really know where the mount is and where it's pointing. You have to tell it things. And yes, it's relatively straightforward today to get accurate go-tos, because I literally don't align my mount. I've got a CGX. CGX wants you to do a 2, 3, 4 star alignment. I just cancel that, tell it to go somewhere, hit plate solve and sync them out, and job done. And then with Nina, when you just say center target, it basically, that's what it does. It just goes, okay, I'm here, the target's over there, here's the adjustments, and it centers it automatically. So that's your next challenge after you've got the mount, is then, if it's not a motorized one, is working out where to point it in the night sky. When you go to a go-to mount, that changes things dramatically. And as with everything, there are cheap go-to mounts, and there are mid-range ones, and there are incredibly expensive ones. Again, you don't have to go for the top-end one. There's a Skywatcher AZ GTI, which originally was developed as a alt-as mount, but with a firmware upgrade, you were able to use it in equatorial mode. And it's not the best mount in the world. The motors sound a little bit ropey. But it's great for a little throw onto a tripod, put a lens on there. You can even just put a camera and a lens on there, and you can start doing long exposures on that very quickly. We're at a scary point now. So meridian flips scare the life out of me still. So what Nina's done here is it's detected that to take the next image, the object, the Rosette's going to have gone past the meridian, and it needs to put the scope onto the other side of the pier. So this countdown is basically saying that in 2 minutes 52 seconds it's going to flip the mount over, recenter it, start off again. It's actually going to re-autofocus as well. Because I had one disaster in SGP where it did a meridian flip and then started to try and basically go to a position that it shouldn't have gone to, i.e. the counterweights were nearly pointing to the zenith, is all I'll say. I always go out and watch it. So I am literally going to disappear in about 2 minutes, just to make sure that when it flips over to the other side, nothing goes wrong. Sorry, I waffled on. Nick agrees that the game changer. I'm into the mount. Go to remove so much frustration. Absolutely. The Ioptron Gem 28. Yeah, Ioptrons. I was looking at SEM 70s last night. I have a habit of looking at things on a night and going, I like the look of that. Let's look at some reviews. I still have my first image of M42 Canon 1000D on a tripod with a kit lens, and I took 282. Wow, that's great. I'm manually reframing and stacking them. It didn't turn out very good though. But that's the sort of thing. It's all about, you know, if you want instant success, this hobby is probably not for everybody. There's some nights it can be frustrating as hell, and you're ready to literally launch everything out the door and the windows and kick things. But some nights it works great. Most nights it works great. You've got to learn to tame things. I am going to literally disappear in 30 seconds just for 20 seconds. I need to make sure that this meridian flip doesn't flip me out. And if anybody wants me to explain why we're having to do this, I'm happy to do so. But I suspect most of you watching know what this is about. I'm going to go now. I'll be back. Success. So the worrying bit's over with. It's flipped the mount over. So what it's doing now is, based on where it's pointing, it's plate solving, and it's saying that the position isn't within inside the tolerance of where the image should be. So it's just slightly adjusting it, and then it's going to take another image, and then it's going to replate solve. And what it's basically trying to do is put the image back into this position, or as close as it can. I've got mine set quite aggressively to within 0.5 arc seconds, I think it is, inside Nina. So the fact that it says select new guide star means it's actually, you can sort of roughly see the 5-second exposure in the background. It's got it back to where it needs to be. And I also have it set to do an autofocus after a meridian flip. Not sure why, but old habits die hard. In theory, nothing should have changed. No temperature's changed. But for the sake of 2 or 3 minutes, I'll let it do its thing. But I will bring back onto the screen the last image it took. And we'll have a look at the stack. So what have we got in the stack now? We've got 17 images in the live stack. So I'm so looking forward to processing this. Let's see how this autofocus is doing. Oh, so you've already got the Star Adventurer 2i, yeah, the new one that came out that's got the Wi-Fi capabilities built in. Oh, and you've upgraded to the EQ6R. Yeah, I've got the slightly bigger brother of the EQ6R, the AZ EQ6R. I don't use it for alt as though, and it's a silly reason why I bought it rather than EQ6. So right now, for anybody who's not aware, it's doing an autofocus run. So what it's doing is we're looking for something called a V curve. It's more of a U. I don't think I've seen many V's, but I've certainly seen lots of U's. What these points are here are when the autofocus started, it moved the focus tube out a varying amount of steps and took a picture. And this is the picture here that it took, and it measured the HFR, and it was just below 10. It then brought the focus tube back in a number of steps and took another picture and said, all right, the HFR here is now 7. It then took the focus tube back in a bit further. And what it's doing is, the scale here is the HFR number. The lower this number, the sharper the stars are, in theory. When it gets to this point, as it keeps drawing the focus tube in, it's going to go out of focus again. And so we'll end up with something that will start to go up this way. It then will take this position. It will actually, because it's using a hyperbolic curve, won't take this position. It will actually take this position here on the green line, if you can see it. And it will move the focuser to that position based on it thinks that that's the best position to get the best focus. You can see I've got no backlash coming out, although there is I don't think that's backlash. It's more probably just maybe the seeing, because the stars are going really out of focus now. You'll see in the background, that's the image that it's taking and measuring these plots on. But it should be finished very shortly. And I mentioned earlier, we do an autofocus after a meridian flip. Probably the least, what's the word? The least needy time to take one. The other times I refocus are every 45 minutes. Again, old habits die hard. And also after a filter change, because my filters I don't believe are parfocal. And after temperature change. And the temperature change is probably the one that's the biggest impact. So as the temperature of the night changes, either it's going up or down, your optical tubes will be shrinking or expanding depending on which way the temperature is going. And that shrinking and contracting causes the optics to change their focus. Again, before electronic focusers, I would have had to gone out and do this, stop the sequence, gone out and done it manually. If there was no stars in the field of view that were bright enough, I'd have to slew to a bright star, put a batting off mask on. It does change the way that you can add to your automation. I've got a question from Gordon. So what are my autofocus settings and the step size? So the step size is I'm going to say unique to every focuser attached to a different optical assembly. Mine are, and these might look big, mine are 349 step sizes. The reason it's 349 is the Sister Senso 2 focuser has, when my tube is fully extended, I think it actually shows you on here. Let's have a quick look. I want to be careful not to... It doesn't. I thought it did. My Sister Sensor has over 100,000 points. So right now we're at, what we're at, 58,000 something. So when you sort of look at sort of cheaper focusers, their step size will be like 50. That will literally move my focuser nowhere. So I calculated this using, there's a great video from Amy Astro where you have to know your step size in microns, and the Sister Sensor is 0.7 microns per step. You can go to a website that she has links to where you can put in your focal length and your F ratio of your scope, which are easily obtainable, and it will work out for you what step size you need for filters. Now they are approximate, and then what you have is a low end, a mid end, and a top end. So this is currently worked out using that calculation on Amy Astro's video, and I've times it by 1.5, which gives me the midpoint of what I'm... And I've had to experiment with it, and I've tweaked it ever so slightly. My backlash, so prior to tonight, I didn't have backlash set, and the Sister Senso was literally, I was seeing no backlash. But I read, I think it was on Cloudy Nights, someone saying, even if you got no backlash, put overshoot in with a value, because you will benefit from it. So I have done, but I don't know why. I thought this a bit of a test. I'm happy to try it, and it hasn't affected it. And it's probably, I'm going to say, even though I've got no measurable backlash from any previous runs, I'm going to say tonight's focusing does feel better, if that's the right thing. And the reason we know we've got no backlash, ignore this here, this oh, I wish I could show the previous one, but I haven't got the right version. This isn't backlash. Backlash would actually show itself as the star HFR not changing that much. The reason I've got this one here is when it went this far out, there was literally no stars on the screen that it could measure other than one, and it wasn't enough for it to work out an average for the entire scene. So usually my V's are like that, and that's without the backlash in. So as I say, I was experimenting with that tonight. Yeah, the hardest bit, Gordon, on that video is if your focuser vendor doesn't publish how many microns per step you move, then you need that for the calculation. I think I've actually got, as sad as I am, was it this one? No, that was something else I was trying to work out. I put them in a spreadsheet so I could quickly work out, because there's a different size for different filters. It's literally, it's not difficult to find. It's that one.
8.
And there's the calculation at the end, but looks, I won't say it looks complicated, but if you just, it started at 8 minutes. If you start from the beginning, she takes you through all the steps that you need, and it's really straightforward. Let's go back to the imaging tab. How's the live stack doing? What are we on? 17. So this should be image number 18. You have the ZWEF, so I imagine that will be a well publicized. You need it in microns. Oh, there it goes. I think. So he's got it on a Takahashi, and would that matter? I don't think it would. I'm sure we can find it out. It should be well publicized. Oh, how are we looking on that guiding? 0.93, not the best. But again, I'm not going to go chasing it. The stars look around. How are we doing in the corners? Yeah, they're not too bad in the corners either. So another thing I use, I mentioned earlier, I have a Pegasus Astro Pocket Power Box Advance, not the ultra expensive one, which is very overly priced, but the I'll say the mid-range one. Looks like this. Oh, it's this one, but it's not the Gen 2, which has annoyed me as well. But it literally looks the same as this. It's got 12 volt DC in, which you feed it with a 12 volt 10 amp supply, two Juita outputs, and then four 12 volt outputs, and then it's got a USB 3 hub on the other side. This is the software that comes with this. It has an ASCOM plugin so that Nina can get data from it. So you can see there the temperature 1.7. It's actually getting that from this, from the ASCOM driver that's behind this. The humidity is 76%. The dew point is -2. So again, all those are available via ASCOM. But I suppose the thing I was keeping an eye on is the dew point. So we can see here as well, I've got my dew heater set to auto. So from those two, channel A and channel B, from that picture, that's what this refers to. This is the amount of power that it's supplying to the dew heaters. So rather than having you on full blast, it works out that from the current temperature, 1.7, and the dew point is at 2.1, it can roughly know how much heat would need to be to keep away dew from forming right now. And it will just adjust these up or down depending on what these values are here and the relative humidity as well. So again, it's just a set and forget, and you don't even, if I didn't fire up this app, it's just built into the box. It will just remember the last setting that I set it to. We can also see the voltage that's being supplied and how much ampage is being drawn from it. So I'm giving it a 10 amp supply. So with my camera, my mount, my focuser and the filter wheel which is plugged into the camera, you can see there that it's fluctuating. And the great thing is we can have a look at a graph. Graphs are good. If we look at the power graph, we can see at some point it went crazy and went up to, drew probably just what, 6.5, maybe just shy of 7 amps. I don't know what it was doing there. We can scroll back through and have a look. But yeah, I love things like this. It really does. It's not going to help me create better pictures, but it's one less thing to have to worry about. And if there's anything that is often overlooked, is providing adequate power to your devices, especially your mount and Skywatcher mounts. Skywatcher mounts are renowned for needing 12 volts or more, up to a maximum of 15. They generally like 13.8 more than they do 12. I've got my light on. And we've had another exposure in. So let's have a quick look at the stack. Anybody tell the difference? No, because we've got that much data. It's very difficult now to see. I'm sure this thing's coming in. What I'd like to see in this tool is the ability to sort of say, show me what it was like 5 versions ago. So when it was on 13, so I could do a quick comparison. It's a minor thing, but I think that would be a useful feature. So I can see where the data's growing. Is it growing in here? Is it growing over there? Is it, this, I'm so excited to be processing this later. This looks incredible. To get this denoised, convoluted, sharpened. I just hope get the colours right and don't make it garish. Oh, just let me check something. Oh no, we're okay. So anybody notice the image is upside down now? That's because we've done a meridian flip. So the scope's on the other side of the pier now. So in theory, the camera's upside down to what it was previously. So in Astro World, there's no up or down in space really. This doesn't matter. I don't need to do anything when I stack these later. The software that I use, which is PixInsight, will know from the way that it aligns images and registers images. It will know what to do with this. So I don't have to flip them around. It will just take care of all of that. So Gordon said, don't have trouble with my EAF, but my V-curve doesn't look that good. There's not too many changes, mostly values between 2 to 3 to 3.5. So one thing you could try, Gordon, is this. If you point your scope at somewhere reasonably, I'll say it doesn't have to have necessarily a massively bright star in it, but something that's got, I would say this wouldn't be ideal because there's too much nebula in there. Point it where there's not a star cluster either, but where there's a reasonable amount of stars of decent magnitude. I know that's quite woolly, but you could probably just point it at a random place in the sky and you'll be fine. The thing to try is, if you're not getting a curve like that, is this. Get yourself pointed at somewhere reasonable. Get your scope as close to what you think is focus as what you can. Either use a Batinoff mask or by visually measuring the HFD until you can get it down to a low number. Then what you need to do is, most autofocus runs, I say most, work on a data point size of 4 or 5. In other words, they will take out the focus of 4 times your step size or 5 times your step size. If you point your scope, you need something like Nina, or I think APT can do it, and SGP can do it as well. You take an image, pick a star or a couple of stars. So if this was the image I was going to do it on, and I know I'm dragging on a bit about getting to it. Let's say it was this. I'd concentrate on this area here. I'm nearly in focus. I'd take an image and I'd maybe pick these 4 stars here. I'd jot down the HFR values. What you're then looking at doing is moving your focuser out, say 50 steps for an EAF. Take another picture. See what the HFR is. When it gets to where it is between 3 and 5 times this HFR, stop at that point. So for this star, I'd want to see this up at, this is 2.65. And again, it doesn't have to be exact. So let's say times 4. So I want that star to be now showing at about 10.6. Again, if it was 10, I'd be happy with 10. If it was 10.9, I'd be happy with that. And they all should adjust by the same amount. So when you've got it to about 4 times your starting point, and your starting point's nearly in focus, you can use this formula, and I'm going to have to go find it. It's actually in the SGP manual. I hope Gordon's still watching. Pretty sure. Where is it? Where is it? Here we go. Here we go. So it literally tells you to do the same thing but using SGP. So it's saying move the focus route until the HFR reading is between 3 and 5 times greater than when you were at focus. So I picked 4. So you've got now your image at times 4. So if we were to do the maths on some pretend numbers, let's say that when we were in focus, our EF was at that position. And when we've gone out by 4 and got to the new value, let's say, just for ease of purposes, it's now at this position. So it says subtract the in focus position from the new current focus position. So we've got 5,900 minus 58,000, obviously, equals 1,000. Multiply this by 2, so that'll be 2,000. Then divide it by the number of data points, in this case minus 1. So in this example, we would literally do 2,000 divided by the number of data points, which is generally 4 or 5. So if we do 5 minus 2,000 divided by 4 would give a step size of 500, sorry. Your values won't be anywhere near this size, I don't think, with an EAF. But it is a good way of doing it. So basically, as recap, get as close to focus as you can, measure the HFR, take it out of focus until your HFR has grown by times 5 of what it started at. Get the starting step size, get the ending step size in terms of the focuser, what the focus positions were, and then do that calculation there. That will give you a good starting point. Hey, we've got Luke. Hi, Luke. Let's have a check of our live stack. We have 18 images. I'm not sure if you're asking me, Luke, or Astro Nick. Yeah, Gordon, it is. It's in the autofocus section of the manual. The concept is not just about SGP. That concept will give you a good working step size value to start with. I'm not saying it's going to be exact, but I think with that you would start to see a better V curve if you're not seeing one right now. I'm not sure Luke can tell you what he was doing. He was telling me earlier what he was doing. Top secret. Yeah, it's looking good. It's a bit overstretched for my liking in terms of what easy live stack's doing, but it's great for a quick snifter at your data. So we're nearly at the end of the HA run. We've got 2 exposures to go. I think I've got... What's next? Oxygen 3. That's where everybody disappears. I'll probably stop the live stream because I'm not sure what the data's actually going to look like for O3. Does that help you, Gordon? I'm hoping it does. It's certainly the method I originally used to work out my step size. And then I tried the Amy Astro way, which has got me to the value that I'm at now. So what have we got in here? 18 images. So we literally have 3 hours stacked in HA now. So I'm loving the amount of data that's coming out in these. I call this, I've got my own names for things on this. I call this the spanner in the Rosette. It literally just looks like the end of a spanner. There's like some pliers or tongs here as well. They're probably this area here and this area here are probably my favourite parts of the nebula. It's I mean it's all great, but I'm drawn to these areas. These bits interest me the most. Did you use the Amy Astro video, Nick, to work out your step size based on the formula that she goes through? Looks like a jaguar. Ain't no worries, Beatrice. I'm having struggles saying your name, but yeah, thanks for coming. It is appreciated. We've got 9 people. I think we had it. I think I had a look and saw 13 at one point. I'll be challenging Chuck and Trevor at this rate. I don't know my live stream. I find it hard enough to make some videos, and as Luke will know, making videos is not easy. Especially like me, when you fumble your words a lot. I must have so many outtakes that I just delete because I'll have scripted it out, try and memorize it, and just end up stumbling over words. $4,800 on the Asato. That is. Is that what you're saying there, Astro Nick? Your step size is 4,800. It's crazy. That's it. I don't know how many microns per step the Asato is, but I think it's some very very incredibly low number. It is, yes. I bet as well when if you ever ask a question about autofocusing on a forum and they say what's your step size and you say it's 4,800, they go, whoa, that's far too big. What are you doing? You need to be down in hundreds. It's like no, this is not. It's great. I had a few people when I told them I used to use a step size of 450, and people were going 450. What are you doing? I was like, well, that's how what works for me. I have tweaked it down to about 340 now, but yeah, 0.04 microns per step. That's unreal. That is absolutely unreal precision. I'm sure when I looked at the Nightcrawler, it isn't that low either. I might be wrong, but I think when I was trying to put them side by side, I'm just slightly worried about the direction Primalucci Lab are going with this Play software. Um, that's the only thing that's making me double think about it. It's a lot of money to pull on a focus and a rotator, but probably spent enough money this year. So, when this finishes the HA, I think I'll close the stream I've enjoyed doing it actually, even if there's been 11, 12 people in. I'd have been happy chatting to one person, to be honest. As Luke knows, I can talk about this all night and often do. Fortunately, I've got work tomorrow, so I have set myself a time limit of 2 a.m. So I'm going to call it a day at 2 a.m. So I'm going to have a quick check on tonight's weather. Not tonight's, tomorrow's weather. It's still showing clear, which is good. It's -4 outside, according to... Well, it must be the wind chill factor, because my watch is saying it's 2 degrees. And this thing here is saying it's 1.7. But it was quite blustery earlier, and that probably is where we're getting some of these spikes. It's not the best guiding ever. Well, again, I'm not going to go chase these numbers. Stars are still around. Yeah, I don't know if you're on my earlier stream, Nick. There's a new version of the Sesta Senso firmware, and there's a new ASCOM driver, and you have to upgrade to version 3. And when I try and upgrade it I did it on my second Sesta Senso, it comes up with an error and then says, do you want to continue flashing the firmware? And I was like, no. And I've tweeted them to sort of say, I ain't flashing anything until you confirm what this error is I'm getting. I don't want to break it. And it basically does away with the old focus manager, which I don't use other than to calibrate it if I ever have to recalibrate, or I don't know. I'm not a fan of the interface they've created in Play and these early errors that I'm seeing with it, especially when I've tried to upgrade my focuser. Hello to OxyZ, if that's how I'm saying your name. So you've getting started with a 72 ED and a Skywatcher. Sorry, a Sky Adventurer. Do you mean a Star Adventurer? I presume that's a Star Adventurer. And a Canon 60DA, SV bonus finder scope, and a ZWO. That's a great starting bundle. It really is. The 72 ED is. I'm trying to think what focal length that is. Is that about 700mm? And if you've never imaged before, setting up your mount is probably the thing to take your time on in terms of polar aligning it, balancing, especially on those smaller mounts. Balancing, when I had my Star Adventurer, I found balancing quite difficult because my payload was always slightly heavier than the counterweights they provided, and I had to improvise and make some additional ones. And, if anything, balancing is almost as important as your polar alignment, especially on the smaller mounts, because if it's unbalanced, those small motors and those small gears have got so much more work to do. It becomes a bigger problem than when you're unbalanced on a larger mount. And balancing is still important on large mounts, obviously, unless you get a harmonic one. So if anything, I would take your time with balancing it, and also polar aligning. If you can get those two nailed, you're halfway there. You really are. The rest of it, I'm not going to say it's easy. It's not as a beginner, but those two, get those nailed, and you'll get some nice images. Oh, it's a 420mm. I'm thinking of a different one. Yeah. You had issues with Play when you got the Arco. Now the release version, when it all works well, I won't be switching to Play from the... No, it's far from a competitor to Nina. I don't even know what they're trying to do with it. There's always a gap in the market, but I'm not sure that they're the right company to be trying to fill it with their own software. I like Primalucha Lab a lot. I like a lot of the stuff that they do. The two things I don't like about them are the mounting system that they've made into their own non-empirical, non-metric spacing. I forget what they call it. The plus mounting system. So basically, you buy one of their dovetails or one of their Losmandi plates, or you buy some of their scope rings. It's all designed around their plus sizing and measurements, which means it generally doesn't fit well on other stuff. Don't agree with that. And the other thing I don't agree with is their Eagle PCs. I get that there's some additional stuff in there, but for the price that they charge, they are so overpriced for what they are. I just think those two do things I don't like about Primalucha, but I like the rest of it. I love the guy who owns the company. I love his enthusiasm. I love the fact that he's an astrophotographer and an astronomer. That really does put a smile on my face. And his videos he's bonkers. He's absolutely bonkers. But it always puts a smile on your face when you watch one of their videos. Right, we've got another exposure in, so spot the difference. It's just getting brighter. That's what it looks like to me. Everything's getting brighter. Old spanner's getting more detail. I seriously can't wait to process this. You're right, Luke, mate. He's got some energy. He tries to make his videos as well. He knows he's making them funny when he does his funny stuff, and they do work. They're great. They're just yeah. Keep headbutting the mic. I am slightly swayed by Astro Nick saying that he's got the Asato and the Arco rotator. It's a shame they haven't made an all-in-one device. So I am weighing that up against the Nightcrawler, and I might end up getting neither. But I have been looking for a rotator, as you know, Luke, we've chatted behind the scenes about this. I've been trying to spec one up, and because I haven't got a lot of space in front of my flattener to my camera anymore, the closest I could get was the Pegasus Astro rotator, but it would have put me over 55 millimeters. So I was frigging around with various adapters from a company in the US who custom make things and put the rotator in front of the flattener. Then when I saw Astro Nick's picture on Twitter, I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. He's doing it on an Esprit 120, so it's not a million miles away from my Esprit 100. And I badgered him for some information, which he kindly provided. I'll see. It's a lot of money to pay. I'm quite happy with my Sesta Senso. And I could just run the rotator. I could just get the Arco, thinking about it, without getting the Asato. Because the Arco will run off the Sesta Senso. It's got they're specialised, I forget what they call the port. How are we doing? We've got 11 of 12 exposures, and it's nearly midnight. So I think I'm going to close it there, guys. I've had fun. I love chatting to people about stuff. I don't know the answers to everything by any means, but if I can help anybody who's beginning and answer some of the questions that I had as a beginner, because it can be a complicated hobby, looking at everything as a newbie. It can seem quite daunting, And I can imagine there'll be people who have tried this hobby and given up quite easily because they weren't able to get the assistance that they need. And I'd speak to anybody, beginner, experienced, advanced, whatever, all day long about stuff. I really could, as Luke knows. So we've chatted into the early hours quite a few times last year, and it was great fun. We chatted about all sorts of things, from noodles to telescopes. That's all I'll say. So yeah, I'm only going to be imaging for another hour and a half, I think. I've got to go for work for tomorrow. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks to everybody who's come. Hey, I need to stop headbutting this microphone. I don't know what's happened. It doesn't. I think I've repositioned it in the wrong place. Thank you, everybody who's turned up and come to watch. I hope you found it useful. If I've helped anybody, it's been worth it. It's not just about me showing a picture. That's part of it. But if Gordon's gone away and it's helped him work out his step size, that makes it for me. So thank you, everybody. I'll call it there. As ever, take care and clear skies.